Hi, I'm Mark Martinez, and I'm going to be balancing the Pocket Cinema Camera 4K onto the new Crane 3 Lab by Zhiyun. So before you start balancing the Pocket 4K onto the gimbal, you want to make sure that you have all the accessories you're going to be using that go mounted onto the camera on, before you start that balancing act. So I have the Sigma 18 to 35 millimeter zoom lens attached to a Metabones Speedbooster, the XL, which works best with the Micro Four Thirds sensor on the Pocket 4K. And then I have the camera mounted onto a full cage. This one happens to be by Lanparte. I know Small Rig makes another one, a similar one. It's important that you use a cage. One of the two that I know of that have these offset screws, and that's important to make it work because of the fact that the Pocket 4K happens to be wide and it bumps into the motors. So you have to offset it a bit so that it has that room to balance. The other option is Lanparte makes a quick release plate that is already designed with an offset, and you can use that to balance the camera as well. The Crane 3 Lab, okay, comes with this handle that you screw on, and it actually acts as a tripod as well. It acts as a tripod, right? And what's really cool about this design is the fact that each of the axes come with a locking latch, right? So it doesn't move around when you're transporting it. And most importantly, it makes it so much easier to balance because you'll be able to do each axis one at a time. So let's get into that. This is the quick release plate that ships with the Zhiyun Crane 3. And the 1/4-inch threaded screw that comes with it, if you don't know, you have to put it in through this side of the plate. Okay, I don't know if you can see this, right? You're gonna have to go in through here, screw it in so that it stays in there. Now remember, we want to be able to offset, right, to my left, meaning that if the camera's facing down, you want the quick release plate mounted on the right offset screw holes. Okay, I'm putting it in the center screw hole on this particular cage, and I'm going to scoot it as far back possible before tightening it, because that's going to give us more room to balance once we put it on the gimbal. And tighten. Okay, and so this quick release plate comes with a lens support that you can adjust to fit your lens, right? And here's the thing though. So now that we have offset the camera, you won't be able to use both screws to get your lens support going. And right, because it's offset, you won't be able to get the second screw in there, but one screw is enough to get it to hold. So make your adjustment, make sure that the lens support bracket doesn't cover any of the threading, right, or the lens grip where you would adjust focus and zoom. Okay, tighten that. I give it a slight nudge upward to give like the lens support just a tiny bit of support, right? Tighten it. All right, because we're going to be moving around, right? So we want that support, a little bit extra support. Okay, now we're set. Everything's tightened. We're going to mount it. Now, if you notice so there's 3 axes. If you're new to the gimbals, this is your tilt axis, right? You have a pan axis, this is horizontal. The tilt is vertical, and then you have a roll axis. Okay, those are your three axes. I gotta look this up. It's axis. The plural form of axis, A-X-I-S, is spelled A-X-E-S. So back to the axis. Each one of these axes comes with a locking latch. Okay, so it's really going to make it easy to balance, as well as transport, because it's not it's not all over the place. I have a Ronin MX, and yeah. But for starting out, as you can see, you have your mounting plate. We need to get that horizontal, okay? So we'll release the roll axis and the tilt axis. Now we can get the camera on there. Okay, but now that we have those unlocked, and now that the roll gives us a horizontal a plane for the mounting bracket, we can lock that back in again. Boom. Okay, and now we mount the camera on. So here's the thing. Before we get started, your roll axis. Okay, you have the arm. Okay, you have this arm. Okay, to adjust your roll axis, but you also have on the mounting bracket the ability to move the camera, the mounting of the camera on the tilt axis arm. Important to know this, because why? Because of the fact that we want, remember that this camera, the Pocket 4K, is a little wider than most DSLRs, and it makes it a challenge to balance, to even to get it to fit on some of these gimbals. But it works like a charm on this one. I tried it out, and you're going to see how we're going to make that work for you, and you're going to love it. Okay, so let's get this thing mounted on here. We're going to slide it. We want to slide it as far back as we can first, so that we can get it on there and it won't bump the motor. The cage won't bump the motor. So we slide that on, right? Right? And we're going to slide it as far back as possible, right? So we can start to balance that. And here's the thing. We're going to lock the plate, the horizontal plate, okay, first, so we can get this balanced real quick here. And all of your nudging, once you start getting it closer to getting balanced, those nudges are very minute. I mean, they're small little tiny nudges. Even the smallest nudge makes a big difference. See, back heavy. Okay, so that's good. I'm going to lock that in there. And now, important, you want to be able to slide. We're going to unlock the horizontal axis, the horizontal thumb screw, okay, of the plate, of the mounting plate, and scoot it as close to the motor as possible, okay? You give it a little bit of space, though. You don't want it bumping it, right? And then we're going to lock that in. Okay, that's going to allow us to balance the roll axis later on. So make sure that's as close to the motor without bumping it as possible. Lock that in. So now we have this tilt axis balanced, but we're not done yet. All right, we want to be able to balance it straight up and down. So we do that by adjusting this thumb screw. And here's a tip, okay? Don't push the arm against the motor, because it's a very tight fit, and you don't want to push into the motor here. If you can just use your thumbs to secure the motor and then push in. All right, we're going the wrong way, go the opposite way. then we can get a good balance. We can nudge it little by little until we get a good balance. Tiny bit more. Remember, tiny, tiny, tiny nudges. It feels like it doesn't even move sometimes, but that little tiny bit of a nudge makes all the difference, and that's how you get a perfect balance. Okay, there it is. Our tilt axis is balanced. Let's lock that in. Boom. Okay, we move on to the roll axis. So here's the roll axis. Okay, we're going to unlock it, and boom, whoa, see that? Way off, way off. Okay, but now because we have already positioned this as far close to the motor as possible, now we can adjust this arm until we get a good balance. Tiny nudges make all the difference, all right? Tighten that, and our roll axis is balanced. And we should just lock that one in, okay? Now the challenge is doing the pan axis. The pan axis, because now we can't rely on the tripod we can't rely on the tripod for this. We have to actually pick it up, put it into a briefcase, like carry it like a briefcase, right? And now we'll be able to balance the pan. It's back heavy, right? What happens if it were front heavy? If it were front heavy, that's what would happen. So now you have to adjust it so that it stays, we want it to stay like that, right? We want it to stay horizontal. So we're going to make those adjustments. And what I'm doing is I'm pushing and pulling. So I'm not putting stress on the motor, okay? And we will get this front heavy. Front heavy. All right, front heavy. Here we go. It's getting there. Slightly back heavy. So now this is where you make those tiny nudges. As tiny of a nudge as you can imagine. There, okay, it's super minute nudge. Right? And if you feel it's still slightly back heavy, again, a super tiny nudge. And whatever is comfortable for you, how's that? Okay, so that's a perfectly balanced horizontal axis or a pan axis. Okay, so now when we release all of the other axes, we are perfectly balanced, and it's not even on. So to turn it on, there's a button here. The power button is here. It's a long press, okay? Long press. And we're ready to rock. Now, one of the advantages of this design of the gimbal, this form factor, as opposed to the Ronin S, which is, you know, like this, it's like that long a stick, is the fact that you can see this handle. You can easily go into briefcase mode and get those low angle shots, which is a little tricky to do on the Ronin S, right? So easy to do here, and look how perfectly stable that is. I'm very excited to be able to use Pocket 4K on a gimbal that I just have no limits to the style of shots that, that I can do. And that's just the balancing. We are going to get into the software and how you can do some really cool stuff. So I'm going to have some sample footage with this setup, and then we'll see how that goes. All right, I'll see you guys around.